The Last of the 20, Book 2, The Quest, by J.N. Wdowski. Chapter 10, The Road to Princeton. Miller woke Nathan before sunrise. Seeing that it was still dark, Nathan grabbed his rifle and knelt a couple of feet away from the window, making sure that he was positioned in the darkness and not silhouetting himself in the window. "Where are they?" he asked, as he looked through his rifle scope. "They are all in the mall. They are already crawling back into their nests for the day." Nathan relaxed as he stood up, shouldering his weapon. "Why did you wake me?" "I want us to get a head start. The sun will be rising soon. We need to get as much distance between us and that massive nest in the mall as soon as possible." His father had already rolled up and strapped his sleeping gear onto the mule. Concerned, Nathan put a hand on his father's shoulder and looked into his eyes. "Pop, did you sleep at all last night? Were you standing guard the whole night?" "I took some short cat naps. Don't worry about me. We were engineered and trained to function on minimal sleep if need be." "Pop, as young as you may look, you are no longer in your 20s. Nathan sounded concerned. "The scientists used to tell us when they were in university they would often pull all-nighters and then take a major exam the next day, fortified only on coffee and energy drinks." Miller grabbed a nature bar for his breakfast, then threw one to his son. "If those geeks could do that, believe me, it's much easier for me. Besides, I honestly don't feel my age, as much as you enjoy reminding me of how old I really am." "I know you don't look it. I also know it bothers Mom that she feels she looks older than you now." Nathan tied down his bedroll onto the mule. "Well, your mom is still beautiful to me. You should let her know that from time to time," Nathan advised him. "It couldn't hurt." "No, it couldn't. When we get back, I will be sure to let your mom know." Miller laughed. "What's so funny?" Nathan asked. "I never thought the day would come that I would be getting romantic advice from the kid I used to change diapers for." "You change my diapers?" "From time to time. Especially when you woke up in the middle of the night, I would let your mom catch up on her beauty sleep." "I never imagined you changing diapers, Pop." Nathan grinned. "I did it for your younger siblings and half-siblings too. Although by that time, not so often. Your aunts would often help each other out in that area. They understood the hard work your grandfather and I were doing every day to expand the productivity of the homestead and construct the defensive walls around the much larger area we chopped out of the surrounding woods." "I guess we were not much of a help at that time," Nathan admitted. "You were little kids and babies. It was more than enough for your mother and aunts to deal with. Yet, in spite of how difficult that was, your mom still cooked for everyone. Aunt Nora helped to keep our electrical system up and running. Aunt Tina supervised us in planting crops and animal husbandry. Your grandfather and late grandmother raised 3 amazing young women." "They did," Nathan proudly agreed. "I assisted too." 124 reminded them. "We know you did, 124. Miller turned to the robot, as did Esmet. "You're welcome." The mule gave its programmed canned response. 7.5 hours later, they'd headed south on Route 202 from the state police station until they reached the intersection with Route 206. Heading south on Route 206, they left the Bridgewater Commons Mall behind them to the north. They had finally reached the north edge of Princeton. "What do your long-range scans detect?" Miller asked 124 before entering the once quaint university town. Princeton, in its heyday, had few buildings, over 3 stories tall, with a compact walkable downtown area of cafes, bookstores, restaurants, and small shops. Presently, the town had mostly returned to nature. Deer flourished on the lawns of the outer, quiet suburban lanes. "If you mean nests," 124 asked for clarification. "I do. Oddly, I am not picking up any nests." "Human life? Any sign on humans retaking the surface? Any homesteads?" Miller thought if Shelter 5 had survived, by this time, Reclaim's Group 5 should have carved out a bit of the surface. He thought about how much Julius, Nathan's grandfather, and he had accomplished in the past 19 years back in Connecticut. "No, but if they are deep in the shelter, I will not be able to pick them up." "So there is still hope there are people, real people in Shelter 5? Nathan seemed a bit excited. "Perhaps even girls?" "You truly are an 18-year-old human male," 124 responded. "I am," Nathan proudly admitted with a grin. If we keep our pace of 3 miles per hour, we should reach the Frick Chemistry Laboratory in less than an hour. 124 changed the subject. I thought we were going to Princeton University. Nathan was confused. The Frick Chemistry Laboratory is part of the Princeton University campus. Shelter 5 is deep under it. It actually expands under the adjacent Weaver Stadium. My understanding was that Shelter 5 had tripled the population of Shelter 1 or Shelter 3 under Yale. Miller looked at his clock in his HUD display. It read 14:05. We should get there by 1500, mid-afternoon. We've made very good time. He patted Nathan on the back. Tired? I'm peachy, Pop. How are you holding up, old man? Peachy? It is an informal adjective for excellent, great, going very well. 124 explained. 124, I know what peachy means. My question was, where did you pick that up from? Aunt Tina. I never recalled her saying peachy, Miller responded. She has used the term on numerous occasions, especially after she had finished The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. I had never noticed her saying peachy. Miller kept their pace moving south. Pop, you had 3 children with Aunt Tina. You really need to pay better attention to the women in your life. Nathan slightly chastised his father. And she is with her 4th. She is? Miller for the first time lost a step. She is, Miller, 3 months now. 124 confirmed. Why am I always the last to know? Miller really had not known. The robot knows, and I didn't. Some things are going to need to change when we get back home. 45 minutes later, Miller stopped their march. He magnified his HUD display and focused on the road ahead of them. They were already on the Princeton campus and only minutes from the Frick Chemistry Laboratory. Nathan unslung his Peppa and used his scope to look ahead. Zachary's. They are feeding on something. Human bodies? The infected, 124 clarified. A score of males, females, children, and infants. Miller also unslung his photon energy particle accelerator as he kept his attention on the feeding Zachary's. He began moving forward, towards them. Dad, Nathan followed along with the robots. 50 yards from the pack, the alpha in their group stopped feeding and looked directly at Miller. It snarled its mutated rat-like snout. Shoo! Miller shouted, raising his weapon to fire if need be. The alpha exposed its teeth, turning its snarl into a guttural growl. Its yellow eyes narrowed as the animal bent its legs to spring forward. The other Zachary's stopped feeding and also turned to face Miller and Nathan. They seemed to ignore the robots completely. Don't do it! Shoo! Miller shouted louder. The alpha leaped forward and charged Miller. One shot, Miller blew the head off the alpha. The other Zachary's, having been ready to attack all, hesitated as they witnessed the leader of their group's head explode into a red mist. They looked at each other and chose to scatter into the ruins of the Ivy League University. Well, that was exciting. There is rarely a dull moment with your father, young Mr. Miller, 124 said as he moved forward to the multiple bodies the animals had been feeding on. I thought Zachary's won't attack prune faces when they are in large groups, Nathan asked, as he kept his attention on the buildings around them and his weapon at the ready. They don't, Miller answered as they got closer to the dead. These were not killed by Zachary's. Miller looked up from the bodies and at the Frick Chemistry Laboratory that was just ahead. They weren't? Nathan looked at the bodies at their feet. Are those Peepa hits? Yes, they are. And these are fresh kills, most likely only a few nights ago. His father responded. Having said that 3 figures holding Pepas exited the Frick building ahead of them, the 3 calmly walked towards them. They wore the same uniforms as Miller, complete with combat helmets and HUD display visors. Are those? Nathan began to ask. Reclaimsmen. Miller answered before Nathan could complete his question. Be sure to continue to Chapter 11, Overlord.
To support the author, please like, share, comment, and subscribe.